Welcome everyone to the Bristol Energy Committee meeting on November 18th, 2020. We have 7 participants right now here, and we only see 4 of them actually. And we're being recorded by Sean at Neat TV. We expect one more person to come around 7:30, and that's Richard, another member of the committee. He is on another meeting and he's going to leave there early and come over to here. So I guess we've got 3 things on the agenda right now, and I want to ask if anyone else wants to add something else to the agenda. And do you want me to read those off just so you remember what those are?
Yes, please do. Thank you, Sally.
Okay, it's first is someone, Porter Knight, asked about the rec club lights over the hockey rink and said, can the Energy Committee give us any about getting those lights more efficient, and so that we can use them more during the night and more often, because it's nice for people to be able to be outside doing things in that rink. So, you know, we've started throwing a few emails back and forth, but I thought it'd be good to be, you know, she was asking for the whole committee's input, so I put it on the agenda for tonight. And I can update you on what has been talked about so far with Matt Sharp and a few others. The second one on the agenda is talking about a virtual series, which other energy committees are doing, and other committees in general, because of this COVID time. You know, finding a way to create some sort of either a series just in our meetings, or having a webinar, bringing guest speakers in, and trying to bring people together to talk about how we can work on projects together in our community for efficiency or saving energy, you know, like bringing our abilities together in the community. And there are many different areas we could go with that. I guess we're just talking about the agenda items, so we'll go into it in detail later. Then the third one is Richard is going to give us an update on a conversation he had with Ben Marks, who was part of the Acorn group, who helped you know, organize the community solar for Bristol's landfill. And Richard said he had a fairly, you know, he learned some things from Ben Marks. I have no idea what that is, but he's going to report on that tonight. And that's, you know, the third thing, and I put it down there a little bit because he won't be here till 7:30. So does anyone else to this agenda? Okay. And does anyone, as a public person, have anything they want to share at the beginning of the meeting? Okay, it sounds like we're all good. Well, I'm going to just take a peek at the participants. I think we're still, yeah, no one else is waiting. All right. So we'll start by talking about the lights. John, you had some input, so I'd be glad to have you speak your input on that lighting request from Porter, if you'd like.
Do you want me to present? I can assume Porter is not a part of this phone call. Is that correct?
Right. She's not on the call.
I see. Well, I guess it's a question for me of the economics. I'm sorry.
I just realized, though, she could be watching it on television, though, because it is on Neat TV. So I just wanted to let you know.
All right. Well, thank you. Okay. Well, it would be a question of the economics, when I can assume that the hockey rink will be available only when the conditions are right. That could be, you know, maybe just 2 nights a week. We don't know that, but the cost of installing a solar powered light system would be significant on a sort of per hour basis. I'm wondering if renting the same lighting fixture and plugging it in would be a lot more cost effective. But a larger issue for me is that the state of Vermont increased the number of COVID cases since October 19 by over 1,300. So the idea of creating a skating rink environment where people would be encouraged to come because it's lit would find themselves skating with people who may or may not be contagious, and there'd be no way of knowing who is on the ice. So there was a breakout of COVID cases when a hockey game occurred in Montpelier. I'm just passing that on to say that this could be a marvelous idea, and I think there are some cost-effective ways to provide the light, but not in a COVID world. That's all I have to add, Sally.
That's great. Thank you very much, John. Good input, good ideas. I'll tell you a little bit more about what I've heard on some emails with Matt Sharp, who's piped in on the question that Porter had about the lights. When he said, just as I was saying to her, is first of all, we have to find out if the lights are LED lights at this point, because that's the most efficient. And you wouldn't want to bring any more power source in until you made sure the lighting was completely efficient, the most efficient, so it was going to cost the least amount. And Porter responded, not knowing how many LED lights are in there, but she knows they put some in. So number one, certainly the Bristol Rec Club or we or someone's got to figure out, what the lighting, what the lamps are, what the bulbs are in there. And the other thing is, Matt suggested that the cheaper way to do some sort of solar would be to get it on an already net metered thing or create a net metered thing with other meters. So you're getting electricity that's already being made on a solar array and just, buying into that net metering somehow. Something like that. So those are some things that Matt has brought forward. And Stephen, you've been in the energy world for a while. You might have some ideas.
I'm not sure I have much to contribute beyond what Matt said, but it did make sense to me that the first thing would be to make sure everything's as efficient as it can be, which is probably LED at this time. I don't know what's there either. So that would be probably the logical next step, is to help them figure out exactly what's there for lighting and what their the technology options are, regardless of the solar piece, for starters.
Sounds good. And Richard piped in that email that went between Porter and Matt and said something about getting an electric contractor to, do something. So rather than they would know more than the Energy Committee would know.
Yeah,
but
that
it
makes good
depends
sense.
on whether, yeah. So
yeah.
Okay. Hi, Jonah. Welcome to the meeting.
Hi, Sally. Was just on Acorn Zoom meeting, which went a little bit late, and thanks to have a chance to join you.
Great. I had asked at the beginning of the meeting if there were any other things to add to the agenda. And did you want to add something, Jonah? Right now, it's the three things that I sent out before.
I could, and I'll reserve the idea that if you think you have a full agenda, that this could wait till the next meeting. But if there is time, then as a member of the Bristol Conservation Commission, it occurred to me, especially, I guess, in light of a new administration federally that is around the corner, that we need to talk, not just talk about change more, but actually find ways effectively to do things regarding climate change. And so that can take various forms. And so I thought there could be a collaboration between the Conservation Commission and the Energy Committee. And so that was an idea that I thought I would put out there. You and I have had a chance to just talk about it, but I know in terms of a broader context, we need a quorum before we could have any sort of action and further meaningful discussion.
Okay, thanks. I'll put that at the end and we'll get to it if we get to it, and we'll see how the meeting goes. But it's great that you've put it out there as an idea, and thank you.
Sure. I'm wondering if we should go to this virtual series thing, or I think so. So the virtual, making a series, which would be either, I'm trying to think of for our meetings coming up, do we want to have a guest speaker, or do we want to focus on a particular efficiency project? I know we've, button up is is what's been going on this fall, but I mean something where community members come together and work on various projects. Like, I mean, in the past, like when we did the window dressers thing, that was bringing community members together, even though they were just doing it for their own home. But some kind of things like that, where we work together on projects that address energy efficiency and saving energy. It also could go into what Jono is mentioning as far as, mitigating emissions as well as energy saving and that kind of thing. So let me try to think of some ideas that were coming to me. Some of them are things like seeing if people want to share electric mowers in their neighborhood, for instance. You could, a few people could get together and buy an electric mower together, save a lot of fuel costs and emissions. Mowers create a lot of emissions, and they could each have their own battery, so they can have their battery ready to go when it's their turn, and they just share a mower between the few people that are so close that you could just walk it to each other's house. This would be a money saver, an energy saver, an emissions saver, that kind of thing.
Sally,
Yes.
as an experienced lawnmower pusher, electric lawnmower pusher, I can tell you that our, not top of the line, but certainly an upscale electric lawnmower, the battery lasts for about an hour and maybe an hour and 15 minutes. And if you're loaning that to somebody, it's that they're going to have battery charger as well. These are, there's some emissions savings, but we've also bought a push mower with sharp blades, and it does a pretty good job.
That's great. That's awesome. Push mower, that really is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, and the grass was about almost 2.5, 3 inches tall.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. Yeah. Good design.
Yeah, it is a great design. I love the sound of it too, but yeah, and that could be something. There could be a really beautifully built push mower that a couple of neighbors borrow or something. It just seems like, why have every single garage have the same tool? You're only
Yeah, I
using it, once a week or once every 2 weeks for a couple hours.
Mhm.
That's what I
Right.
think is a money saver for people, and that kind of thing. Just COVID is kind of reminding us to get back down to the basics, and I just feel like we should think of some ideas for community members to maybe jump onto.
Mhm.
And the reason I got into it more is because I spoke with Jay, who runs I think it's Bear Mountain Mowing.
Yeah.
It's a it's a landscaping business that is all electric. So it's quieter. It's so low on emissions, and he's using these mowers all the time, so it would be a lot of emissions and noise, but that's cut way down. And he said they're getting better and better, these mowers. So the batteries are longer, they last longer, they're better, they do a better job. They're
Mm.
electric trimmers. These kind of things could be shared. Those, gas powered trimmers are allowed and noisy, smelly, and polluting. So it's
Mhm.
just more ideas of sharing, getting into more of a sharing thing, of finding your lawn pod, and figuring out some other ways that might work,
Yeah.
especially if you're ready to replace a mower anyway. Some things are harder around COVID, like, sharing a car or something like that. So COVID is making share a little difficult in some areas, but I think a mower people could get over, that you could work that out, wiping off
Yeah.
the handle, basically.
True. Yeah.
Does anyone have any other thoughts that we could just begin brainstorming on ways we can work together as a community to lower our costs and our energy and our emissions?
Well, Sally, one thing that came to my mind just from that conversation was to possibly explore alternative ground covers that would require less mowing. I don't know much about it, but I'm sure there's information out there, and maybe that could go sort of hand in hand with something like what you're talking about. Also, I wonder whether you or anybody's aware of any examples of such a thing, electric mower sharing program anywhere else.
Good idea. Yeah.
I think, Sally, tagging on to what you said, Stephen said, is I know I'm contemplating right across the street from me is the Gingerbread Trim Dream House Country Inn Bed and Breakfast, and they're cutting their lawn much more than I do because I think it's somewhat based on appearance and running that business where things need to look very nice. I not so much on that end. However, at some point, the ride mower that I have is gasoline, and I would like to think that it's going to become antiquated. Talking to Jay also, those electric mowers are quite expensive. So I think the primary reason is cost. So if I could share with my neighbor or more than one the cost, or maybe even I endure the cost, and yet I arrange that every time that they use it, there's sort of a mini lease that's in place or a rental. Somebody has to deal with the maintenance. I think you brought up a good model because lawn mowing is something that happens. But at the same time, what Steven's saying is maybe we have ways to lessen the amount of lawn that we need to have to deal with. And there's other choices of vegetation that require less, or to use lawns in other ways. I think that goes back to the idea, again, if we have time in your agenda, of getting these types of discussions out there when there's opportunities, and maybe having a regular feature of of our collaboration between the commission and the committee to promote all of this and to have opportunities like when the electric vehicles are out there on the village green and people get a chance to experience them. They could be experiencing mowers. They could be experiencing all sorts of other hands-on types of ways of doing things. So I think the time is ripe. I mean, we just have to be really moving on this stuff. And unless we have people that are really ready to take the lead, and your committee and arguably, environmentally speaking, the commission should be those entities that are doing some of that. It helps get other people engaged and actively, I mean, we become change agents that help other people become adopters of different means of doing things in more sustainable ways. That's pretty much sums it up.
Sure. Sally, I think we're on a good track here. And as I listen to people, putting forward some nice ideas, wouldn't it be great to be able to enlarge the pool of ideas? And, as we talk about possibly having more community involvement through, doing, community Zoom or whatever. What if we invited the community to join the Energy Committee with the invitation being the Energy Committee, explain the role briefly, but essentially ask them to join us in brainstorming ways that we can do things like what we're just talking about.
Yeah,
And,
that's great. Yeah.
to bring some ideas in that we can work on. And in so doing, I think maybe you'll also get more investment from the community if they are contributing ideas that we can in turn explore.
That sounds great. That's a great idea. So invite the community to brainstorm with us. And yeah, that's excellent. I like that. And it may be through a front porch forum type of thing, or, and there'll be some people who don't do front porch forum. We could figure out ways maybe to reach out to others. That's great. And there are so many ways, I think. I mean, just transportation is a whole nother area that is a big use, and, bicycling, walking, those kind of things. Maybe, like I was saying, car sharing probably doesn't work at this time because of COVID, but hi, Richard. Thanks for being here.
Hi. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Richard.
Hi, Richard.
There are 9 of us on this call, and actually 2 of them are Jim, and and then there's John, who's on the phone, so you don't see him on your screen. But I just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, thanks.
And we're now talking, we're brainstorming different community projects that people might want to do. And Mike was just putting it out to the community to have them brainstorm ideas. And they're things like sharing an electric lawnmower, or a push mower, or rent a mower from your neighbor who has a nice electric mower, or that kind of thing. And then maybe look into ground covers, a different kind of ground cover, so we don't have to mow as much. Different things like this. Going toward other ideas like bicycling, other transportation models. One other one I want to mention is gardening. I've just turned a big area that could have just been grass into great garden beds, and areas for creating more compost and nice area for pollinator plants, that kind of thing. It takes work, but you don't have to mow it. So I don't use any equipment that takes any power at all except my own body and a lot of food. So I'm not using any power equipment or anything. So even helping people do more garden space, or even let someone, maybe some people want to do a situation where they don't want to mow their lawn much anymore. So they let someone come and put a big garden on it, and that person takes care of that garden and maybe mows around it. Or, there's so many ways we could collaborate, I think, in town on projects like this. So
Sally, you brought up earlier the concept of people working in pods. One of the things, and then this goes along with the transportation piece, that I was just thinking about, so often folks need to run to the market, or if people shop at the co-op in Middlebury, and they need just a few items. If there was a way to help the community develop these pods where, if I'm going to Middlebury, or I need to go to Middlebury to pick a few things up, I can call, a neighbor who I know might be going, and say, hey, if you're going to Middlebury the next day or two, could you get whatever? And again, do this in a small group of, 4 or 5 families. And we're not talking about, doing their weekly shopping, but, those kinds of things where there's some communication going on, and it would save a person jumping in a car and, driving, 25 miles to get, a handful of items.
that's a great idea. Very good idea for transportation. Yeah.
How could that be? I wonder how that could be organized. How somebody could post that they were going and have other people contact them, or what? Do you have any ideas on that, Mike?
Yeah, I don't. And, I go back to this pod concept that people select neighbors, or people in the community that are friends, and they come to an understanding, 4 or 5 of them, that, if you need an errand run in Middlebury, I'm going tomorrow morning if you need a few things picked up. So, more of a self-contained small group, as opposed to kind of a community-wide, people calling you up, or you calling other people.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I also think that Richard was kind of leaning into another possibility, which is where you could actually put out, hey, I'm going to, I don't know what it would be, but someplace, do you want me to, is there anyone in town who wants me to pick up something there too? I mean, that's, it depends on what it is. You're going to pick up 1 bale of straw at this place and you've got a truck. Hey, can I pick up straw for anyone else in town?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just it brings us together as a community more. We get into being there for each other. I think that's really great, and saves energy and time even. And we're not used to that. We're used to being very independent. So, it would be new. It would be a stretch for people, but it might be helpful. We're already doing some of it, these days with each other. So, great. Well, we could, if anything else comes up, we could circle back, but I'd love to hear from Richard now, if you want. And are you interested in telling us a little bit about your conversation with Ben Marks, Richard?
Yeah. That Ben Marks is president of Acorn Energy, the company that's going to be installing the project on our landfill. And I'm going to be organizing an outreach to churches as part of the Interfaith Climate Action Network, which is going to be allocated 10 to 20% initially of the energy because they were in on the ground floor of the Acorn projects. And so I wanted to know where we are with the project because it's been pretty silent. And so I had a long discussion with Ben about 2 weeks ago, and then I sent him an email this morning or yesterday morning asking a couple of follow-up questions. And what we had heard was that the Acorn project was being held up because Green Mountain Power had to do what was called a systems impact study. And that had a kind of a malevolent sound to it as a way to, kind of slow things down, because we know there's going to be the PUC and the federal government are going to be changing the rate structure, not favorably. And but it turns out that it actually is an essential part to make sure that the grid, not just our substation, but that the grid can handle the load. And so what I found out in my emails yesterday was the impact study is going to be completed. The target date now is December 14th. It gets it in time for Acorn to submit the plan to the Public Utilities Commission for their approval. And Ben is very optimistic because they've done this 2 times already. They know the ropes with the PUC, and they feel it should not be a terribly long process to get information back, approval back. Oh, also the impact study, Ben said that he talked to Green Mountain Power recently and got favorable vibrations that it'll probably be positive. So that's good, but not certain. And let's see, one of the critical components was that they had to sign up the Series A investor. This is the person that's going to put the big money in that will enable them to purchase equipment, purchase the equipment and stockpile it to get in ahead of some of these tax credit deadlines. And as of yesterday, they have a Series A investor. They have an agreement in principle and expect to tie things up very quickly. So, so it's looking like we will, after the first of the year, be signing up people who want to participate. We'll have the financial picture that we'll be able to give out. So Bristol residents will receive priority up to a certain point, and we expect it's a big project, and we expect that there'll be lots of room for people to invest, and it should be favorable.
That is really great news, Richard.
And
I was
construction.
What a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Construction in the spring is still possible.
wow, amazing.
And what company will be installing the panels?
It's Acorn Energy.
Acorn.
Yeah.
I mean, the actual construction company is
Yeah, it's a different company. It's
Okay.
actually doing the installation. I forget who they
I
are,
forgot their name too.
Yeah.
It might start with
Aegis.
A also.
but it's
Aegis. Yeah, AEGIS.
yeah, right. So everybody looks good.
Uh-huh.
That's great.
Whew.
I know they were so pleased in Waitsfield. They did a similar project with the same construction company, Aegis, and people were so pleased with what they were able to get for their money as far as energy. You know, they really, and they wanted more, you know, more people wanted to get on. They want them to do it again, you know, do another project, because it's really a very favorable way to buy your energy.
Yeah.
So, and it's renewable, and it's, you know, no, so anyway, I'm really glad to hear that it's looking favorable
The people in Weybridge,
after a long wait.
the shore, who subscribe to the Shoreham project, are thrilled with what they're getting. Very happy.
It's great.
And can someone refresh my memory, when it comes to, assuming these pieces fall into place for the permitting and the public utilities approval, does Acorn handle the subscription process?
Yes.
Yes.
They
Mary,
do,
yep, a woman named Mary Mester is
and
there.
outreach and all that?
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely will be, it would be great if we help out with the outreach for
Yeah.
Bristol, you know, help
Mhm.
people, help residents understand what's going
Sure.
on with that.
Sure.
But they'll all go to Mary Mester, who is the, like the accountant and that kind of thing for them.
Okay.
And she lives in Ripton. All these people are local people. It's just so great. It's a local
Yeah.
project. You know, that's what's so great about it. The construction
We should-
companies from Waitsfield, you know, and Acorns, Middlebury, and it's just great.
We should have T-shirts.
We do something.
Yeah.
That's true. Might be a good idea.
Mhm.
All right, well, that is great. So I guess I just like maybe Jono, would you just repeat your question a little bit so that Richard can hear what we what you brought as a possible collaboration between the Conservation Commission?
Sure. It occurred to me in the, let's see, so when we as a commission were talking about dealing with things with the COVID conditions, I guess, somebody came up with the idea of a backyard bingo game that I guess a few people were familiar with, and then also another type of game where families could do something that was outdoors, that was nature oriented, and could be a positive way to, I guess, pass the time when everybody was sort of shut indoors. And so that got me thinking a little bit that we needed to be able to do more in regard to the climate change issues. And I felt like we do a pretty good job in Vermont. We do a fairly good job, I think, locally in Bristol. Yet federally, I think that we don't do very well, but that hopefully will change with the new administration. And ultimately, whether, you know, part of the purview, I think, of our two groups, the Energy Committee and the Conservation Commission, is to create awareness. And so there's lots of different ways to do that, but I think an area of common interest, and I liked Mike's idea of saying maybe our two groups could get together and brainstorm ways to do some of this. I'll give you a sort of tangential a different angle on it. So in New Haven, for years when I was a New Haven resident, their Conservation Commission just focused on the idea of having speakers. And so that, and it wasn't year round, it was primarily in the winter months. And so they talk about bears, they talk about clay plain forest, you know, and I went to some of them, I didn't go to all of them, but it really was helpful for me to become more knowledgeable about the environment. Salisbury seems to be doing something along those lines now. I attended a Zoom talk by this guy, Wessel, who talks about economies and sustainability and mutualism and all of these sort of interesting ideas, some which I know a little bit about, but he expanded the horizons quite a bit. So back to climate change, with our two committees, could we put on a regular feature? Maybe it's once a month, maybe it's every other month. Maybe it involves films, maybe it involves speakers. A way that people are becoming able to get more knowledgeable about climate change issues, to actively be involved in doing something. I mean, you guys are already promoting everything from the window dressers workshops to light bulbs that can change people's electricity usage when they go from compact fluorescents to LEDs, et cetera, et cetera. There's so much that I think, could be doing more to, one, create awareness, and then two, create being the community members being proactive. So that's the basic concept. How to achieve it, what might be most effective. I see a lot of ways that it could evolve, and become, more effective. So that's, I'm basically putting it out there to your committee and saying, what do you think of the idea? Is there some opportunities for collaboration? And if so, then, maybe our group takes on, the planning for something one month, and then your group takes on the planning for another month. We sort of share the load, so to speak. So I just feel that we all seem to know that there's this urgency about climate change, and yet it's that analogy that I've heard. You put a frog in some warm water, in a pot of warm water, it doesn't really do much. And that's kind of the climate change analogy, that it's happening so slowly, and we go on about our days, and there's things that 20 years ago, maybe it was, where an inconvenient truth, and I was all fired up. And I've had other points of fighting the distribution gas that came into Bristol, and there's their day-to-day lives and so on. But it just seems that we've got to ramp this up. And if we can do a little bit, we become potentially a model for other communities in Vermont. And then, there's just an expansive way that might be something that catches on if we get a pretty strong model going. Or I think there's other pockets of people that are doing things as well, and we can not have to reinvent the wheel. So
Yeah.
that's probably a little bit longer rollout, but interested to hear what your members think.
All right.
I
So
just came from another meeting where Vermont Interfaith Power and Light, which has been very active in person, lobbying and running conferences and having speakers and so on. This fall, we switched to Zoom presentations, and finally have gotten the technology under control. And I can tell you that there are all kinds of people who could make presentations in Vermont. And I agree, we could trade off. And right now, I think one of the dominant themes is just transitions. That we're in a situation now with a pandemic and an economic meltdown, and we can come out of it and go back to doing what we've been doing, which is highly stratified. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and we don't solve any of our environmental problems or justice problems. Or we can, as is, I think, a major theme with the Vermont legislature, make sure that every bill everything that is done in Montpelier is informed by this notion of environmental sustainability and just transitions, so that we work to make sure that everybody's included as we rebuild. But you start thinking about that, and that's environmental, that's taking care of the New Haven River, it's sustainable agriculture, it's energy efficiency, it's weatherization. Richard Fahey is heading up has just made a proposal to VEIC and has been funded to develop a program to weatherize 80,000 homes in Vermont.
That's great.
I mean, all these things are going on, and Fahey could come on for one of our programs and do a presentation on his proposal. That's
Yeah.
absolutely spectacular. So I agree with you. I think we ought to meet and divide up the months and see what we can come up with.
It sounds great. It does. It really sounds like it would be helpful to get, ask people to come in if they want to watch, or if not, they will have a link afterward to look at it at their leisure, to learn what's going on, what are the possibilities that we haven't thought of before and that we're thinking about now to solve some problems.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
And we could also publicize things like the Vermont Sierra Club conversations.
Yeah, those are great.
That occur on many Wednesday nights that range all over the place, that are generally people discussing, a couple of presenters, and then an open conversation. And they're great.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. So I think this is a good idea, that it's something that we can do. And there are other energy committees and probably conservation commissions as well that are doing this kind of fabulous work throughout the state. And they might have something that we can share that they've already done, and it's really inspiring, and we could share that, whether it's from Porch Forum or actually, I don't know what else, but so yeah, this is great. It's time to work, really help people understand what's possible and what they might want to get involved in.
Jono, what's the Conservation Commission's thought about when they'd like to discuss this?
I think we have an incubation period for, a few months. Because of the COVID aspect of things, it's always wonderful if you can get people in a room for a speaker and so on. If there's any truth to what I'm hearing, that there's 6 months with a vaccine that's going to start sort of more of a fuller rollout, we'll just have to see how some of that unfolds. But I think just initially, what suggestion, when I brought it up to the commission, they said, well, we have a natural chance to reach out to the Energy Committee and see what they think of the idea. And if just as you had some great thoughts to bounce off, and it's nice to know that, and I agree that there's probably a whole bunch of speakers out there that we could tap into, that it just seems that and I think about Mike, we know about team building. Team building is about getting critical mass. When you get critical mass and people are all going in the same direction, everyone's pulling that oar together, it's pretty magical. And I think we have to somehow reinvigorate that topic of climate change by showing people that there are can-do ways, and inspirational opportunities. And so we need to get that momentum started. And then once we do, I think I liken it to the idea of, if I've got solar panels up on the house and somebody walks by and says, hey, what do you got going on there? And I tell them about it, and I say, you could do this too. And then, now there's other neighbors on the street. It just has a way of building, but it's got to start somewhere, and it takes a certain amount of sort of repetition and consistency. And then once you get that going, you have something that starts to turn the cogs in the wheel and then build on itself. So I think the individuals that we have between our committees, our groups, have a lot to offer. And I wouldn't say that we had any time frame in mind. We just was first reaching out to see what you guys thought of the idea and the potential to collaborate. We all have busy lives, so I know this is a volunteer role that we take on. But it seems as though we have our central things that are on our agenda and things that come up. But if we could, we can collaborate with the library. There's just so many different ways that we can kind of piece this together. But just at least, it sounds as though I'm hearing some good from at least,
Yeah.
sort of getting the idea out there, and that there's some interest, and we
Yeah.
can go further. I can report back to the Conservation Committee. Our meetings
great.
are the second Thursday of the month, and it seems like your meetings follow a week or so later. Then we can start to have a liaison between our two groups. Maybe it's Sally and I. We'll see, and just start to develop things a little further if you'd like to take the next steps.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds great. And also bring in Mike's idea, which was, ask other people in the community, not just be like the leaders. We offer
Sure.
some things, but invite people to bring their expertise or their ideas, and so that everyone is working together. It's not, top down or anything.
Absolutely, 100% agree.
We can use Front Porch Forum, I think, really effective to gather ideas. And I found when I circulated the traffic petitions that generated all kinds of feedback.
Yeah.
So Front Porch Forum is a real asset.
Well, thank you for entertaining this on your agenda, and I appreciate your feedback, and look forward to seeing if we can have a chance to maybe have a crossover Zoom between our two groups, or some other way to have a brainstorm, and then with Mike's idea, create a larger forum with the community. Maybe after we get sort of just foundational kind of a framework in place.
Sounds great.
Sally and Jono, this sounds great. One of the things that, as I listen to people talk in terms of getting other people involved, I want to come up with a hook. There's always a way to get people engaged, I think, if there's a really good hook, to engage them. And then you think about that, what is it? Yeah, there's a lot of people that are really concerned about the environment and global warming, but is that going to be a big enough hook? And, I'll put it out there. What's the biggest hook in terms of energy out there?
Savings, money.
I think money savings is big for people.
Money,
Yeah.
And I was thinking about, just in getting people a low investment, changing light bulbs, for instance, which Jono mentioned. I think that if we can come up with some hooks when we invite the community in, that will, just pique their interest. I have no idea what that or how to go about doing that, but that's just a general thought. I know walking through Home Depot, and wanting to get some full spectrum lighting, I discovered a light bulb that's Wi-Fi enabled.
Yeah.
And it's I bought a couple. So it sounds like, Richard, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And in terms of energy, they're great. In terms of being able to use your phone app to put it on all sorts of settings, dim it. I mean, the range of manipulating it, from reading to bringing it down and watching some television, and to program it to come on just before you typically get up in the morning. I mean, it's such a cool thing. I mean, there is a cost, they're not cheap, but just hooks, get people interested in maybe some new technologies that they may not be aware of.
Right before all this COVID stuff happened, I bought a case of LED shop lights. Remember when we did our first
Right.
button up event, we gave away a shop light to the first 25 people. So I've got 24 shop lights that we could offer maybe as an incentive for people to, maybe if we had 3 events and we could document that they attended the events, they'd get a shop light at the end of it, or something crazy like that.
Yeah, or maybe they get a shop light if they start a electric mowing pod in their neighborhood.
Or something,
Or-
yeah, we offer,
Or if they, or the other thing, the shopping pod. I mean, that
Or-
kind of thing.
Or the Energy Committee, if we can bring enough people together, the Energy Committee awards one of the shop lights to the 15 people who come up with the best ideas moving forward.
yeah,
Perfect.
whatever.
Yeah,
Anyway,
great-
I'll make them available to the committee.
That's great.
They were like $3 a piece. We don't have to tell people that, but
Yeah, that's great that you found them at the right time. We're there at the right moment.
yeah, I walked into Martin's and I said, "Do you have a case of these?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "I want them all."
Great.
All right, well, this has been a really fruitful meeting, and are there any last minute things before we close?
Stay warm, stay healthy.
Yeah.
All right, that's great.
Thanks for coming, Jono. Good seeing you.
Yeah.
Great to see all of you. I love to
See
see
you all.
familiar faces and
Yeah,
meet some
great.
new ones every now and then.
And Jim, it was great to see you here. It's like the old days going to these select board meetings. You were there. So thanks for showing up for an energy meeting.
I haven't missed any of those select board meetings in 4 years, maybe 2. This is the
Nice.
first now. I hit the planning commission, and very interesting. It's good to be
Jim
involved.
was also at our Conservation Commission
Right.
meeting just recently. He's a very engaged citizen.
Yep.
Great.
He gets,
Well, I did 20 years for the police advisory board until I saw the handwriting on a wall and I packed that in. So I wish you guys luck and do a good job.
Yeah,
thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.
Thank
Jim.
you.
Appreciate it.
come back.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Sally.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Sean. Sean, can I end it now? I'm guessing so.